In just 5 hours, Title 42 is set to expire, the Trump-era policy that allowed Border Patrol agents to use COVID as a reason to turn people away at the border.
Right now, there's a lot of moving pieces here, from preparations by law enforcement to efforts behind supporting migrants once they enter the U.S. We have live team coverage with Aniele Ruiz on the border in Brownsville and Adam Bennett in Houston with how shelters are getting everything set. Aniele, we begin with you. You've been on the front lines this week. What's the latest tonight?
Well, guys, we just spoke with the Border Patrol Union president. He tells us that they can comfortably handle 1,500 crossings daily, but he says that number is increasing to 8,000, and it's really thinning their crews out. He said just within the last 2 to 3 days, they've seen 10,000 people crossing, not just from Central America. He says they're seeing people from Africa, India, China, and they're worried that these numbers are just going to increase in the coming days. The clock is ticking for Title 42 to come to an end, a big concern for those patrolling the border.
We're defeated, demoralized.
Border Patrol Union President Brandon Judd tells me they fear the worst is coming. And the problem is their agents are stretched thin processing people crossing the river. And that leaves a gap.
And when we don't have agents patrolling the border, that's when the cartels can cross our higher value products such as fentanyl, which is killing thousands of U.S. citizens every single year.
But to help alleviate some of the burden, DPS troopers and the Texas National Guard have stepped in. They've set up barbed wire along the border, and in some cases, they're using their bodies to block migrants at the river and turning them around.
We're telling them in Spanish, this is not an area to cross. It's very dangerous, to go seek, if you're going to seek asylum, go to the port of entry where it's much safer, much controlled. And that's why the federal government also put in place the CBP One app.
But for many families, they tried using the app, but it just didn't work. So the Guerra family decided to cross the river without the app. He says he did it because the situation in Venezuela is difficult. Financially, he couldn't afford anything, not even simple medication for his daughters. He says he wants to work to provide his girls a better future. A future that they say already looks brighter for his 2-year-old and 9-year-old daughters. His 5th grade daughter, Ariana, who dreams of being a doctor. Now, this spot is a hot spot for a lot of people to cross the river. That's because there's a shelter right across the border in Matamoros, Mexico. Now, we also just learned that Senator Ted Cruz is expected to have a press conference right here at 6:45. Of course, we'll bring you guys the very latest from that. And now for the next part of the story, we'll send it over to Adam Bennett, who's in Houston, as they're waiting for those people who are seeking asylum.
Aniele, just hours after Title 42 ends tonight, a bus from El Paso carrying migrants will be arriving here in Houston at a shelter run by Catholic Charities. And both here and at the border, nonprofits are helping the federal government with a lot of the heavy lifting. Since 1980, Casa Juan Diego in Houston,
they have a place to sleep. They have 3 meals a day.
Has welcomed waves of newcomers from other nations to one of this nation's most diverse cities.
In the last few weeks, it's doubled and tripled from what we were having.
Director Louise Zwick says their guests are from Venezuela, Colombia, and several African countries.
Many have come through the jungle and suffered very much on the journey. They have trauma. This is a place to be at peace and to relax and get started. And
those with sponsors in other parts of the U.S. end up at Catholic Charities' Houston Transfer Center, alongside buses coming directly from agencies in El Paso and Eagle Pass.
It's much more affordable to fly out of Houston. They still end up saving money flying out of Houston compared to flying out of El Paso.
This man from Venezuela arrived yesterday.
Duramos 9 meses, pero gracias a Dios estamos acá.
After fleeing political instability and extreme poverty.
Crean en Dios, que Dios existe, y que no abandonen sus sueños, que sigan adelante.
Hernandez does believe that the remaining $1 million or so in FEMA funds should keep the shelter open for another 2 to 3 months. She says not only are they dealing with more people coming in, but also more people that aren't able to get any financial help to pay for those plane tickets to their final destination. Now, Casa Juan Diego, they tell us that they have a list on their website of things that they need, donated items that they'd like to see if you'd like to help out. Mia?
So many resources needed, and this really is just the beginning. Adam, thank you.